come once again to discuss things.
It's your old pal Scythe Part 2 here with a very special guest, Murder Show Comics. I guess it's, well, Horror Show Comics, but still. On this special episode of Ghouly Gentlemen Horror Month. Yep, I'm going with it, man. I'm sticking with it. I do a decent Crypt Keeper, man. I'm telling you.
Are you recording this?
Yeah. It's all we've started. This is how I'm opening every episode of Horror Month, man. Yes. That laughing you hear is my very special guest, Mike from Horror Show Comics. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, my friend.
Yeah. No, Mike reached out and wanted to be on an episode of Geeky Gentlemen Horror Month, so he watches a lot of our character discussion videos, and he wanted to talk about a character that is very popular from his own channel. What character would that be, Mike?
Well, Mr. Sid, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today we're going to be talking about a very popular character that is both loved and incredibly despised. And that character is known as Tomie, written by the famous horror manga artist and writer Junji Ito.
Tomie, huh? And so when you approached me about this, just to give people a heads up what this is going to kind of be, when you approached me about this, you were like, oh, do you know anything about her? Or maybe you could watch my videos because your whole channel is kind of devoted to chronicling her story. And I was like, no. And the reason for that is occasionally on these character discussions, we'll run into something where one person knows a lot about the character and the other person doesn't know anything, and that can go one of two ways, but sometimes it creates a really interesting dynamic because it requires an intense level of focus to really boil down everything that the character is about, to do an analysis of them, and so it creates an interesting dynamic, I feel, which is why I thought this would be a fun idea.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is about that is that even I don't know everything about Tomie. That's the best part. I know a lot, but she's still a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so beautiful about the character, like where she's from, what's her powers, things like that. But the overall story and what makes her a horror story, yeah, that I know. That's as much experience I have with her.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, why don't you start us off with just like a general sense of who the character is and like what her stories are.
Okay, so in general, Tomie is kind of like the main character. There's like 3 books out with individual stories. I don't know how many stories she's in the tip of my mind. But each story is kind of different where it puts her in a situation. And basically, she's kind of like a succubus. She's like in the terms of ruin of man, where she would have men, fall in love with her, and then they go from 0 to 100 of becoming obsessed to a level that's murderous. So she drives these men into killing her, and that's when the horror truly begins, when she multiplies, and she drives these men into killing themselves or becoming reckless. And each story's different. Like, if she gets killed in a way, like she gets chopped up in pieces, and then the 5 Tomies grow. Like, if there's an arm of Tomie, it will grow into a Tomie itself. So it's like, as every story of Tomie, you're finding a little bit more about her. And
okay.
Yeah, it's nobody knows where she came from though, and there's a lot of theories. Like, they don't know if she's a demon, they don't know if she's actually an actual succubus or a ghost, The thing is about Tomie that makes it so, and that's what makes it her so successful, because it has the audience wondering more about her. She doesn't kill people. She did in one story where she cannibalizes people when she was trapped in a lake. But overall, her most of her stories, she drives people into suicide or killing each other. And the way the stories are written, it's so detailed and very unique. Something you don't expect in horror films. Like you see Jason or Freddy, they actually kill the victims, but in this one, the victims are killing the killer. So that's unique, and it's actually successfully written. Um, and my favorite personal favorite, why I like this character is even my audience reaction. Like, if you go in my channel and you see any of my Tomie videos and you look in the comment section, there's no gray opinions about her. It's like either you have half of my audience who truly hates this woman, or in the other half, um, it actually loves and admires her. So
And
that's why that.
that's really interesting because I've heard you talk about that, and doesn't that
Yeah.
have an almost direct male female split between hate and love?
Yep. Yeah, I've noticed that. I was gonna get to that, but it's like a lot of my male viewers, when they watch a Tomie video, I mean, you get a few who are probably, they kind of like they have a thing for Tomie, and then, but most of the male audience, they call her like what in the acronym word thought. Uh, I, I I never knew what that was until I made my first Tomie video, and I'm like, what's the thought? So I had to Google it. I was like, oh, okay.
Getting old.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
No, that's the same. Someone had to explain that shit to me one day. No,
But then you have the other half, my female audience. They really like the videos, and because of her, and they really like her stories and stuff like that. So yeah, there's kind of a split in any of my Tomie videos that
that's
I
really
put up.
interesting. It's weird because it seems to happen every year where, the format of Geeky Gentlemen is just we get all together and we pick a topic or a character or a review or whatever and just discuss the shit out of it. And it just kind of rotates person to person and people pick whatever they want. But every year during Horror Month, I tend to notice a theme. And this year, it seems to be of gender or in particular gender in general, but in particular sexual violence. So you talk about Tomie being kind of a succubus, and does she only have these effects on men? Is it only men that fall in love with her and only men that go crazy and start on like their murder sprees and shit?
Well, that's a good question. I thought that at first until I did a recent story where she gets adopted by this rich couple, and then she actually affected an old woman who wanted her who wanted her beautiful looks. So how her power works, by my guess, because in these stories there's no detailed explanation. It's pretty much left to the imagination to work itself out. But the recent story where I actually seen her powers or affect a woman is when she reminds herself when she was young and beautiful, and that's when she started attacking Tomie. And the horror story actually begins. So yeah, actually, in my guess, how it works, it's not like Batman's poison ivy or something. It's not like pheromones or something. It's basically temptation. And the thing that's weird about this
So
story
like
is,
sin almost.
yeah, it's like a sin, I think it's a curse. Not only affects the people who have temptations, even the slightest, but also herself, because she's getting killed, and she regrows back, and she's getting killed again. So it's like both bad on the killer and the Tomie itself. But yeah, it's interesting because I never seen her actually affect females. I mean, she's put herself in rivals with females, but the only time it's just that one old woman that actually she affected and manipulated.
Okay,
But
so like there's precedent for it, but it's mainly male, which I think would
Yeah.
kind of lend to the explanation of why so many men on your channel seem to have problems with her, and so many women seem to not, because there's something, even though the character is being brutally murdered and stuff, there's something empowering there, question mark maybe, about the idea of the character being able to like kind of punish men who take things too far, kind of punish men who are abusive or what have you. I could kind of see that being played with.
Well,
and not even necessarily explicitly, but just kind of implicitly playing on those ideas within the piece.
here's the thing I forgot to mention is that people think, why her powers are like this. And yeah, I mean, why she mostly targets men. Um, the thing is, in her very first story, one of Junji Ito's first stories, which was Tomie, and that's her first story, I think she was actually human at that time, and it actually shown her as she was manipulating a teacher, and you kind of get a vibe of what kind of person she was at the time. Like she was a person you could easily hate. Like she was manipulating the teacher, pressuring him because of the affair he had with her, and this is a married guy with children, and the students didn't like her, both the guys and the girls. So she had an accident, and all of a sudden the teacher and the students decided to murder her. Both then the guys, they stripped clothes and they chopped her off in pieces, and the girls actually participated as well. I think this was the only time. I think this is the part where she was actually human, and they discarded her pieces out into the several places. And I think that's at the end of the story, you kind of see where a piece of her is regrowing into a different Tomie. So I think in the origin story, I'm not sure, because Junji Ito writes in a very ambiguous way. My theory, I think she was once human, and now she's cursed, and now she has to curse all the men, for what happened to her. Because it was actually a grisly, brutal crime when she got murdered.
Well, like, let me ask you something, because you mentioned that, like, when she's split up into parts, each part regrows as its own Tomie. Do they come together and converge, or do they just stay separate and go through their own experiences, potentially for like a lifetime at that point?
Like, how it works is that if you chop off Tomie's arm, her arm will grow back, and that arm you chopped off will actually grow itself in a new body. So you'll have two Tomies. So that's how it works. Like if you chop off a finger, something like that small, which has happened before in one story. But once two Tomies grow, they're at rival with each other, because Tomie is a very competitive, and she wants to be the only one who's the most beautiful. So she'll try to kill the other one. So the only way you can actually kill Tomie is through fire. So that's how they pretty much go out. If there's like 52 Tomies in one room, they're probably just thinking about killing each other, so there can only be one. There's going to only be one of the most beautiful women in the world, and that's her. And that's her mentality.
Okay, I can get you there, but like, so what you're saying in the origin issue though is the pieces are dispersed around town. So like,
yeah.
Does Tomie have any ability to know how many of her are in the world at one time?
From what I know, no.
Okay, that's really interesting.
She has the power, like, she multiplies. It's like if that piece grows into a Tomie and you chop her off in 42 pieces, there's 42 more Tomies. This happened in another story. You could just take a handful of pieces, just dump them somewhere, and they'll grow into 42, beautiful women. But they all, any Tomie
that way in real life.
Yeah, no, trust me, not Tomie. They will really screw you up. That's the thing. Tomie is a really terrifying horror character. It really is, because if you're a guy and if you have that inner temptation, no matter how small it is, she's dangerous. Literally, she will screw. Like, she's not like Jason, where she'll kill you or something. she will literally make you suffer by destroying your life in
Wow.
the worst way imaginable. Like her stories are cruel
Mm-hmm.
in the deepest, darkest ways.
And
And
that's the interesting thing that I've like, because I've watched some of your videos. It's just I don't have. It's a couple things. It's nothing against you personally or anything. I just particularly don't care for like the explained channels and stuff like that. Or and you of course do like more of a narrative story kind of thing, which is neat. But just between not having a ton of initial interest in the stories, since I'm not much of a manga guy, and between not really caring for that, I haven't watched a ton of them. But I've watched some of your videos, and like it kind of goes to, in a wider sense, what makes Tomie really interesting to me, just hearing you talk about her, is damn, that shit's weird. um, like, just
it's
all of these ideas are so out there, and I think that's just because, as Westerners, we have, like, a set thing of what we know of for horror, and this is just something that, like, it's so obvious that it comes from a different culture, because it's things that I've just never really seen anywhere in any Western horror, you know?
I'm gonna get into that's an interesting topic. When I found her, I wasn't not interested in her at all until I met one story where I just totally fell in love with her personality, where she met with this snob top model, Japan's most sexiest model or something like that, and he thought he was like God's gift to women until he met her. So that interaction was hilarious, and that's when I actually became a fan of her. But these stories do get dark, and you kind of see how easily someone can hate her. Because there's one story where she put her powers on a young boy, and that is when she actually that I think that was at her worst.
Mm-hmm.
So that was totally effed up what she did there. Like she totally screwed this boy's life up in the worst way imaginable. So I mean, yeah, and the thing about Tomie is that she can easily be popular. She can easily grow, here in America. With I don't know about films though, because it's kind of hard to act out Tomie, because I've seen her actually live action films and even the animation cartoons, and it just didn't feel like it the same as it is with the mangas.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the mangas it seems like more vindictive, more spiteful, more evil. Because that's what this girl is. She's just wants you to suffer just for the fun of it. Like there's no shred of goodness in there. So what baffles me is that this is not something that's heavily popular in America. I mean, the only thing I can see that's popular, the growing, is like you might see some of her stuff being sold at Hot Topic, but I mean, you might go to Barnes and Noble, you might find a book collection with her. But I mean, this is somebody who can actually take horror, by surprise. That's the thing that baffles me.
Mm-hmm.
Like she brings something new to the horror genre,
I
and
mean, it
it's
definitely sounds like it. The few videos I've watched has some just of the most bizarre and creative, disturbing horror I've seen. Like just the kind of shit that like you think about what is going on in the guy who writes this head. It's just like Jesus, that's fucking weird.
yeah, I can tell you he's got no rules. I tell you that. It's just like
Like I've
there's
seen
no.
you post some of the images and stuff, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? How did someone imagine that shit? It's so fucked. Um, it's creepy as balls, man. It'll get you, and so like I don't know. It's really fascinating to just kind of get that cultural window, because you occasionally see like horror from Japan or something come off, and like I don't know, I think of like The Grudge or whatever, where like the girl's walking like bent upside down and she's like walking on all fours and shit, and it's fucking weird and creepy as shit. And I've never seen anything like that in Western media, at least not until Japanese media started to influence it. So it's just a unique blend of someone who's probably got some fucked up shit going through his head, mixed with this cultural divide. So I've got no preparation for it, and I do agree with you. It seems like some of this stuff really could be poised to take off in just a couple of years.
Yeah, it should. I think it should. That's why, and that's one of the reasons why I set up a series, with her on my channel because I tried to, I tried to, stress the fact that something like Tomie should be more popular. I feel like she's not as popular as she should be, because she's something that definitely the horror genre today in America really needs.
I mean,
That's how
just
I
the fact
felt.
that she's a female horror character is kind of a big deal because, like, you know, like who can you name in American media for female horror icon?
Uh,
Syl, the female
Species.
Cenobite. Yeah,
Yes.
like,
It's that's yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. It's like you got Jason, you got Freddy. I mean, they're all good.
yeah, I can
They're my
rattle those
favorite.
off. And I can
Yeah.
go further back, right? I can go Dracula, Frankenstein,
But
Wolfman. Like I can do that all day, but
the
female
thing is,
icons are hard.
the only most popular female horror icon there is Elvira, the mistress or whatever. That's tip of
And
my
she's not
mind.
even like a horror
I know.
character. She's a
She's
hostess.
I know. I was
Um,
like that's what baffles me. It's like, and I'm sitting here, I'm looking at Tomie, right? I'm into her fourth story. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, why are the people just sitting on this? Somebody should be trying to get something like this in America.
yeah,
I'm
like
like,
I could see it taken off, man. You make a really strong case for it, and it sounds incredibly unique, which is what's really cool. It's not like it's a female Jason, right? It's like a completely different fucking thing with its own dynamic, and the character's female, and that
I
just
mean,
makes it incredibly interesting.
what horror film do you have where the popular killer is not killing the people, it's actually getting killed, and that's the theme of the horror. That's basically what it is. Like the killer just wants to be killed. Like Tomie wants to be killed. That's part of her plan. It just so she can ruin somebody's life in the worst way possible before they end up killing themselves. Like
Man,
in one episode where she drove this artist to his damn ruin, after he killed her, he just sat there and died.
yeah,
Just sat there, did nothing, just died away. All
wow,
it's like, and I'm trying to remember some of the things she did. Like the boy she ruined, like she ended up ruining his family when she charmed his father, so his father ran off with her, and the kid just got possessed. So he grew up killing people, and he got killed in prison by the time he was a teenager. So that's how it ended. The end. I was like, that's fucked up, all because of her. So I mean, that's a different kind of horror other than just a slasher film or just a monster. It's something fresh and new that I feel like horror needs.
yeah. And really, the only thing I can think of to compare that to is kind of the Lovecraftian, like, I've been driven mad thing, but it's something much more potent and particular in the way it's connected to a single entity and not, the grand cosmic horror of squid monsters, right?
Yeah.
So that does create a really interesting and unique dynamic, and you're making me want to go read some of it. What would you say is something that Tomie does that, like, you don't think works? Since we've been really positive, what's something about the character that you think, like, this I really like this character in these books and stuff, but something that I think is could be handled better is XYZ.
All right. So this is gonna sound weird because I'm gonna sound like I'm one of Tomie's possessed individuals. So, but I'm being dead off honest here, though. Um, Honestly, I'm being dead off honest. Her character, her story, I don't really find any flaws. I mean, some of the stories don't really work. I think are just silly, like the head in the bucket story, or things like that. Some of the people who read the manga probably know what I'm talking about. But overall, I find her character actually perfect for what it is. However, the only problem I experience with Tomie and is reenacting her in live action or animation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different vibe that this is something I experienced later on. There's a different vibe to it than compared to what you're reading and what you're seeing. Because Junji Ito, here's the thing, he puts his storytelling is unique. Like he's not just writing it; he's actually merging it with the artwork too.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to reenact that into live action and animation is really hard, especially his detail works with Tomie. So if you have an actress, it's just not probably going to be the same as that seductive vibe you get from the manga. It's probably just going to be dull or boring, and some of the audience are just not going to buy it. So you got to have that actress who's perfect for being seductive, both personality wise, not just by the looks. Same thing with the animation, because they came out with the Tomie animation, and I watched it and I'm like, no, she's fucking annoying. I can't watch this. I was like, I don't feel seduced at all. I feel fucking annoyed, and it's like I didn't even make it halfway through. And it's the same way I felt about Poison Ivy and Batman too, because it's just like with Batman Forever, I was disappointed because I didn't feel
Batman and Robin rather.
Oh yeah, Batman, Robin, whatever. Yeah, it's the same vibe I got. I mean, the cartoon did it, but the live action failed miserably.
Now, see, this is an interesting discussion because I can see what you're saying, but do you think... Because you've always heard, like, you always hear the people that leave a movie based on a book and they go, oh, the book was better.
No.
And my reaction to that tends to be, well, the reason you say that is because you got to experience it on a much more intimate level where you're creating the imagery in your head, you're creating the voice for the characters, all that stuff. So do you think your complaint about transitioning mediums, adapting the work, do you think that's just because you got to experience it in your head first? Because I'm of the opinion that film, animation, and even comics, to be honest with you, cannot do horror as well as prose. I think that prose is the best medium for horror. After that, you go anything that you're producing with your head, so comics are certainly part of it. And manga, comics, is all the same shit. I don't care. Type your angry comments. But like, do you think that it's got anything to do with the fact that she existed in your head in a particularly profound way before you got to experience her in someone else's vision? Or do you think it is just a lack of translation to other mediums?
Well, being honest, when I do her stories, I work on her stories, I get more detail, I get more understanding of the character. Like, how does this character think? I kind of do that. You kind of get that idea when you probably saw some of my videos. Mm-hmm. And I had to study her character and her personality. So yes, it's probably because of me personally that I feel like, what I'm seeing in the mangas is different I'm favoring more of the mangas than what I'm seeing in media or anything else. That may be true. And yeah, I thought of that, and I have to bite that too, because that may be true. I'm not sure, but even if they do make a video, even if they do make a film or animation or anything, I mean, it really wouldn't matter. I mean, it's just my opinion, and it's just a matter of fact that the most important thing, and I always tell myself this, is that if I see a film, if I see her being popular in horror genre, that's more important in my opinions, because she's actually becoming more popular, and people are loving her. But I mean, it just depends, it just depends on the acting of the film, or just, if it's my opinions based off, let's say 90% of the people, disagree with me, that's a good thing. Maybe it's just because I favor the mangas more than the outside media. That's a fair thing to say, because I've worked in depth with this character on my channel, and the people who watched it can actually see that. Like, I have to find the music that matches her personality, her mood, the vibes, everything. So yeah, it's probably just me favoring the mangas more than anything else, because one of the things that I think I felt like this because I had some women and tell me like I'm like Tomie, I'm just as sexy as her. I was like, no, you're not. I was like, you're totally missing the point. I was like, I don't know. Sorry. So that's when I started realizing I was like, yeah, I'm probably just favoring the manga more than anything else.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, we're getting close to wrapping here. We usually try to do recommendations with these character discussions, and so since I've not read anything on the character, what I'm going to recommend is to go check out this little channel called Horror Show Comics that does all these videos on Tomie. But what would you recommend? What are just like the Tomie stories that you'd recommend? Like, oh, this is the top of the line, best stuff for her.
Okay, so if you're going on my channel, I'm not gonna lie or sugarcoat you. I do present some of the most mature and fucked up stories I can find, so be prepared for that. My channel is not for everybody, but if you're looking for something that's scary and horror, that is, let me just put it this way: as I say in some of my channels and some of my videos, I'm not here to scare you. I'm not a creepypasta channel. I'm pretty much striving to make you feel uncomfortable, but also enjoy the video as well. So for those of you who want to find the best Tomie stories, I specifically choose, what I consider as my favorites, and it's actually so far the best. So I would check out Tomie the model, Tomie top model, Tomie the boy. Those are the two popular ones so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I probably made about 7 or 8. So you could start there, and if you're interested or something like that, you could just go ahead and see the other Tomie stories.
Gotcha. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, problem?
It was really great having you on, man.
Thank you for inviting me, by the way.
Not a problem. I was glad to have you. I mean, you're Horror Show Comics, and we do a whole month on horror. So hey, if anyone's just come for Mike's opinions on Tomie and you enjoyed this video, let me just give you a quick rundown on Geeky Gentlemen. We do 3 episodes a week. That is 3 podcasts a week. 1 full length, 2 about half an hour each. We do general discussion, debates, or review topics for our main episode, depending on the week. We do a character discussion, much like this one, every week. And we do reviews of fan films and other fan projects, like fan comics, fan mangas, stuff like that. So if any of that interests you, please come check out Geeky Gentlemen. I mean, there's so much stuff. Some of it's got to interest you, right? We got over 600 episodes in the playlist too, so feel free to scroll through and just waste your days away. Anyway, so I hope that gives some people some content to check out, and hey, we just hit over 2,000 subscribers on this channel, so we're slowly climbing that mountain, man.
I'm gonna cut in here real quick, squeeze something in here, right? Any of my friends who are watching this, let me just let you know that Sid here has been a supporter and helpful of my channel for a long time, even before I was Horror Show Comics. So, thank you to Sid, and he's one of the YouTubers who's, he's one of my best friends, by the way. So I'm very happy to be a guest on Geeky Gentlemen.
Awesome, thank you, man. All right.
Oh.
Well, everybody, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the philosopher.
Yeah, and I'm Horror Show Mickey.
And we are your ghouly gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
I think I'm gonna start my videos that way.